to this third episode of ScriptChat. It is the 12th of February, 2023, and it's a little after noon East US time, but it is 17 GMT as always. Hopefully you guys are having a good day today. It's time for our weekly show. So last week's show we kind of got tied down in the weeds making a map, but we did finish that and we'll show that off today. But first, we have a guest on the show, BPDrej. And BP is a friend of mine. He's a fellow clan member, if you could call it that. We're not really a clan right now because we don't have a formal charter or anything like that. But he will be again, I'm sure. He's an active member of the community. That much I am undoubtedly certain of. And BP's been working on some really special projects that I think you guys are going to be interested on. So BP is here to talk about some space maps. Welcome, BP.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So what do I need to do in order to be able to view these space maps? I think I just configure your folder in the GitHub desktop, or do you want me to share some concepts from maybe like a website? What's your plan for this?
I think we could show. Do we want to show just these two concepts that we have prepared, or we can just pull up the maps themselves and just get right to it?
Yeah, we could show the concepts, and because I think it's always good to start with the idea and then how it turns into a map script. So where can I find these concepts?
So you should have a link to the Google Doc.
Okay.
And that has my list of concepts that will all come to light eventually.
Aha, yep, found it. All right, so we will bring this up on the screen for the folks. Yes, BP has documented this all very well, so you guys can see. All right, so which ones are we looking at?
So today we'll be looking at Comet and Tidal Locked specifically.
Excellent. Why is it taking forever to load? That's all right. Here we go. So find Comet. Comet is in progress. Oops.
Should be able to jump right to it.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I should drag Jupiter in there so that you can see what was done for that, BP. So I did a bunch of land generation for Jupiter. All right, so Comet, this is how it looks, guys. We got an elliptical shape, and then we have a tail leading off the end of the comet there. It says an asymmetrical map could be interesting competitively, but might have to be tweaked. So it looks like in this one, the comet's shown on the left-hand side. You guys can see where the forests are. You can see where the gold, and I think where are the relics? The relics are in the tail of the amphibious terrain. So this is solid land terrain. This ellipse here, and then there's a tail of amphibious terrain around the comet to sort of recreate the ice and all the dust that are breaking off of the comet as it's orbiting the sun. And of course, comets have very elliptical orbits, so it has very extreme differences in the surface temperature of the comet. And when it's really close to the sun, it's obviously really hot. And when it's far away, it's really cold, and it collects more dust out there. And it just keeps coming back. I don't think comets ever run out of dust. Do they run out of dust, BP?
I do not know for sure.
There's probably no rule about it. Some of them maybe have run out of dust, but probably most of them don't. And this comet carries all the necessary resources for a growing atmosphere, including breathable air. Standard start, so it's not nomad. Nice. So this is the concept for Comet. And let's take a look at Comet now in the scenario editor. See what BP has done with it. how BP is progressing on implementing his vision for the map. So what do you want us to do? Large, medium, large
Yeah, let's
size,
go
8
with
players.
large. And I'm not sure, did I commit the update I did last night? I don't think I did.
Oh, all right.
Let me check.
Let's see. Because if you didn't, then I won't be able to see it.
You'll be able to see the basic land generation, but I did add, and with the players, but I did add pretty much everything else last night, just as a general
Okay.
overview.
It looks like there's a commit from 740 last night. Was there another one since then?
No. So let me do that real quick.
Um, oh, it's saying that you did commit it. All right. Let's see if this looks right, though. We'll know in just a couple seconds here. No, this does not look right. I mean, it looks kind of like a start. There's an elliptical player starting arrangement,
Start.
and there's this elliptical shape that the players are on, but you may have done more since then.
Yep.
So,
So let me commit this real quick, and we'll bring that up.
all right, we'll refresh here. Yeah, I should toss Jupiter in there too. I can show that at some point too so the folks can see. The progress on the space maps. Whoever would have thought that Age of Empires and space could work so well together, but we're going to make it happen. Probably most people would not expect space to work very well with Age of Empires.
We shall see. All right, it should be committed.
Okay, excellent. Let me refresh the GitHub here. We use GitHub Desktop to manage our files. So I would come up here and say fetch origin. And okay, it looks like it pulled it. See the history. This looks like there's a little bit of work on title locked. Let me try refreshing comment. Have to back out of the game maybe?
Maybe. I haven't messed with it that way.
Or maybe it just takes a minute. Okay, it says terrain progress on Comet. So it looks like it's a different thing. BPDrej workshop. Pull origin. Oh, I just had to pull the origin, I think. Yep, there we go. I see it. I see it. All right, let's go back in. And we should be able to see the updated progress on this. We'll come back here to the large size. And we'll pick Comet version 2. And we'll configure 8 players. Did you bake any randomness into these players, or maybe not yet? I'm still working on updating the random positioner. Oh, wow, this is really nice.
Oh, the cubes though. You got to do that to me.
Oh, sorry about that. I still have the cubes mod enabled.
Right.
But did you really do a lot of terrain mixing with these forests? Should disable the cubes mod. Oops.
No, it's I just left them as snow forest. They don't have any like dirt underneath them, mass underneath it or anything.
Well, I mean, like, did you add dead forest in and mix the forests, like the pine forest with dead forest, or with snowy oak forest and that sort of thing? So,
Currently all snow, I think snow pine or just snow forest, which mainly looks like evergreens and dead trees.
okay, nice. Looks like there is amphibious terrain out here, and you can clearly see the difference between the amphibious terrain and outer space, which is much darker. Can you dock out here on this edge?
You could not, so that's something that we would need to think about
Hmm.
if we wanted to add like dust specks, I guess, to the outer edge that you would be able to place a dock on.
It could probably be arranged with terrain manipulation. Folks would appreciate that if they were going out here for the deep fish.
Yeah, I mean, even like I could add, because right now you just see it's like I have the amphibious kind of trailing off as a little effect with negative clumping factor. So I could add some dirt to that, or I could change that to dirt, not have any amphibious in that medium water, and that way you would be able to place a dock on it.
Yeah, it looks like there is this space the Cavalier can't go. It looks like there are some small islands of amphibious terrain out here. The Cavaliers can't go there or there. So it looks like it follows the mini-map pretty well. Yeah, I like that. I think that's good. Some people will probably complain about it, but people always complain, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. And this is fully amphibious terrain. So this is the mangrove shallow, and it has some black masked over it. And this DLC black is an actual terrain, and it's made to look like space. So you can build on this, you guys. You could build your cathedral on it if you really wanted. There's no elevation on the amphibious terrain, and there is no elevation on these patches of land back here either. Um, I'm assuming that's because these patches of land were done with terrain generation, and therefore cannot be elevated because terrain happens after elevation.
So yeah, this was just me getting a general scope of what I would want them to look like. But if we decide we should probably get them elevated or make them um, spaced out evenly instead of pretty random, then we would do that with land generation, and that way we could elevate it. But currently, with them just being low elevation ships, will definitely have an advantage out there
Mm-hmm.
compared to on the mainland.
So I don't
Which
know.
I'm
What do you guys in chat think about this? This kind of gives a real, I don't know. It almost has like a Socotra feel, but then there's like other stuff that you can do in case you lose the battle for Socotra. What are your thoughts about how this might play out, BP?
I think it'll be pretty aggressive just with this initial setup. Um, but I can't really think of another map that has it like you said, Socotra. There's probably some Socotra with outer water, something similar to that, like a small island that everybody's on. But I think it'll be pretty aggressive. I don't know how well it'll work with teams. At one v one, it'll um, probably be a little more open for variety. But teams, it would definitely be interesting to see. One thing I thought about as I was putting the forest terrains on there, spacing them out, I was thinking, I think it's Beach Fight from Crazini for Battle of
Mm-hmm.
Africa. They're all the players are pretty close, and then outside, pretty much the rest of the land besides the corners is, I think, cracked terrain, or it's like sand and cracked terrain mix. So there's not really ideal to build out there, and all the
Mm.
players are otherwise pretty close to each other in the middle of the map. So it did get kind of aggressive unless they walled off. I think this might have a similar feel to it, but you can have ships as well.
X Factor is here. Welcome, X Factor. We're looking at Comet by BP. It's a new map that we were working on. BP is helping me test out my Create Player Lands program, and it's barely adequate to get elliptical shapes. And there's another one that it gives some weird bug, I think, where for the player starting locations, because getting these player starting locations is non-trivial. The Create Player Lands command always centers the arrangement of the player lands around the center of the map. But in this case, he doesn't want that, right? He wants a comet over here with the player centered around the center of that comet, which is elliptically shaped. So that's interesting. Um, so this amphibious terrain out here, this mangrove shallow terrain, this is intended to be all flat, or did you consider elevating that?
Considered elevating it. Yeah, I was just mainly thinking of it being flat, just so ships don't get a elevation advantage anywhere. Because if people do spread out over there, which I expect at least the outer flanks will, or in a 1v1 somebody might,
Mm-hmm.
then demolition ships can take down pretty much any building someone sets up. It could probably get pretty oppressive.
So these the boars here, how did you end up doing the objects? Did you do normal min and max distance to player sorts of objects, or did you have to do actor areas to get all of these objects in place?
These were all actor areas. I pretty much just copied over from Beaver Dam and edited a few. There are still issues with some players will miss a gold, some will miss 2 extra sheep. So it needs to be adjusted here and there. And I was messing with force distance from players. Um, there's probably some easier way to do it, but I just had this initial setup just to
Yeah.
get a visual for people.
So this is fine. I mean, this would be acceptable to test as a community game map. Be a lot of fun. Although looks like I don't know that they actually don't have a main gold, do they? They basically just have two small golds of 4 tiles,
2 small
and
golds, and then
there's
there's
some
a lot
stone.
of neutral out on the amphibious.
Hmm.
Yep.
Neutral resources are so much easier to make work, because you don't have to worry about everybody gets one, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to keep track of 8 different golds, all spawning in different locations. So one thing that you could do to get smaller islands back here, or smaller particles of comet breaking off, are that you could actually create elevation on this amphibious terrain and then convert the amphibious terrain, or whatever this starts out as. I don't know what it starts out as, but convert it according to height limits so that the ships can't actually go up there, so that it's a different type of terrain. So, for example, on another map that I'm working on, I'll show it real quick. And there's actually, I think there's a lot of overlap between the kind of technology we're trying to develop to be able to make like cool. This is basically an islands map, right? Everybody
Mm-hmm.
starts on one big island, and then the teams have the option to expand onto smaller islands afterward. It's similar to a concept for Nicaea that I have for the Greek tournament, which we should still be able to see because it's in a different type of folder. But I'll generate that real quick and I'll kind of show you. But I mostly want to make this about BP's maps, but I will show here. Hopefully I didn't screw this up too much. But these smaller islands right here, um, these ones truly are random, and they are determined um, by elevation. So you've got some base terrain that's put down here, and the base terrain actually has to avoid all these islands right here, like this really tall one and this medium one and this lowest one here. These are directly placed because they're so big that if you place them poorly, or rather you let it place them, it'll place them wherever and it won't be fair, right? It's most important that these bigger islands be fair, which is why they're symmetrical. And we'll have multiple different varieties in there. But the little islands are created using elevation, where it just creates a little bump of elevation, and then it doesn't convert that. It instead converts everything that's at elevation 0 back to beach. So I guess what I'm getting at is you might be able to achieve something like that for Comet.
Yeah, I think so. That would actually look pretty good.
Uh, Comet V2. Here we go. Um, and then we maybe can help you out with some other lands generating in this area, some bigger chunks of Comet breaking off. So ideally, you would have the biggest chunks directly behind this, and then it would trail into smaller chunks, I would imagine. Um, we see if we can help you out with that. Right now, the big chunks are all flat. We want ships to have a disadvantage. Ships are very powerful. Um, but yeah, it looks good. Looks like you just have the straight line back here, BP. Looks like you don't have it. I don't know if this is just an initial take, or did you decide on the straight line, or do you want to try to have a little bit more curvature
It's
between
initial
these
take.
points? It's an initial take.
Yeah, I might mess around with a curve to it. It
Uh,
shouldn't be too difficult to implement.
So do you have player assigned forests, or are these forests just all neutral forests that have to avoid player town centers by a certain amount?
They are all neutral, so it
Okay.
is not created equally yet.
Did you did you try doing the player assigned forest, but maybe the players were too close together for it to be practical? Because that is possible. Something I thought
Yeah,
about.
I was initially thinking of it. I just setting this up last night. I was like, I'm not gonna bother right now, just for a little showcase. But it might cause issues just with the shape, and then getting to larger team numbers. I'm not sure how well the force would generate.
So the X Factor has a question. He says, can you do extremely high elevation water and extremely low elevation land? What on earth, X Factor? Why would anybody do that? Why would anybody do that? The answer is yes, you can. I don't know why you would. You'd have to explain to me what you're thinking about, because that just confuses me. The reason that we do the elevation of the land over the water is because ships are generally regarded as more powerful. You just get more hit points, more attack per what you spend on ships. So that means that ships can be extremely impressive. And if you're ever at a disadvantage where you don't have ships but you need to be out here or something, you're never going to claw your way back into the game. You will be defeated very quickly. So X Factor says a battlefield that's inside a lake, let's say with cliffs around. Um, yeah, that would be doable, I suppose. I don't know if BP has anything that's like that, but from what I understand, X Factor is suggesting basically a circle that is water in the center of the map, or a lake or water all around the outside, and the lands are in the middle. That's elevated. It's fine.
I
Yeah.
guess.
I don't know. Seems reasonable. Just different than typical. It sounds like X Factor wants to help design some of these space maps, BP. You know, X Factor, you would be good at scripting, I think. I think you would enjoy scripting a lot, too. Although I know you're busy. Do you have anything that looks like that, BP? Your space map concepts? Anything matching the X Factor's description? Could make your
It's
dreams come true.
centered around like a water in the center of the map. I do not have anything, except, well, I guess you could go to the show match section. I do have Ring World, I think I called it. It's basically Halo,
Ring World.
and it would you would want it to be like a ludicrous size to give enough land just to be fun. But I'm
Uh,
pretty sure Mad Catter has similar things like Ring Nomad. That's a pretty fun map.
so where is TBD show match? Here we go. Ring World. This one, huh? Oh, I see. I see. I see. So I think maybe X Factor's talking something about this one, perhaps. It's like Halo. Oh, I don't necessarily think you have to do giant or ludicrous, though. But it is true that space would be limited. People do love their space to boom, but I think being aggressive is really good. Full of different biomes. Um, I mean, maybe you could have some asteroids or something like that in the middle just to provide a bit of extra space. I'm not sure. Or maybe you just make the ring thick. I don't know.
Yeah, it depends just on what
The
size
ring
you go with.
thicker. There's all kinds of content that you could make about this, though. Kinds of cool ideas. If zombies trigger when players discover flood research facility, chopping in a specific area opens a ruin where flood starts spreading. So you could make the dead object of trees equal to, like, I don't know, a saboteur or something, have it blow up and do a bunch of damage. um,
Yeah, I was thinking just like Woad Raiders, Gaia Woad Raiders just start flooding on, spawning on the map and trying to kill everybody.
Unfortunately, it seems like you can't spawn something from the dead object of something else and have it be unconvertible. So the World Raiders, you could get them to spawn, but they would instantly be converted by whatever player um,
See.
found them, which I guess would be kind of powerful because maybe that player figured out how to make the flood work for him. I'm not really sure how if that's really their style though. The impression that I've got is they just work for themselves.
Indeed. I know
So,
Zetnus on his hyper random, when you set it to King of the Hill, he has a guy army guarding the monument, so you can't just take it right off the bat. You would really want to get to Imperial Age if you want to contest it. But that's like already spawned military. So I
hmm
guess the quote unquote facility or like walled off trees would have to be filled with army that everybody would already see, anyways.
um, I'm just trying to think if there's some way of like creating a hidden object or like a if there's some kind of object that's a map obscure that prevents you from seeing somewhere. And when you fell the tree and the tree dies, it doesn't spawn those units, but it spawns a saboteur that has a specific blast level designed to destroy that obscure, and then it reveals all that stuff. That's another idea, maybe. I don't know. I don't know that it could work yet.
Yeah, I don't think so, but it's I mean, maybe it's possible.
I just have to look into it. X Factor says disabled monks. I've played that. What are you talking about, X Factor?
He wants to get rid of monks.
No, X Factor. No, you don't mean that. All right. So anyway, yeah, that could be fun. That's got a big lake in the middle of it. Could make something similar to that. All right. Anything else that we want to talk about? Comet here. Looks like a really fun concept initially. We'll see if we can help you out with elevating these. But for now, I'm working on getting the player spawning location to be more reliable. I just basically took what I had yesterday morning and kind of and made this makeshift modification, but it seems to have an issue for the two-player configuration on one of your other maps.
Yeah. I don't think there's much else really. I mean, yeah, when we get the you can get the particles looking better in the tail, and I guess we would just talk about balance. Otherwise, maybe need some play testing with that. Fix the actor areas a little bit so nobody's missing a resource.
Yeah, we'll set you up. We'll set you up with the actor area spreadsheet and the object writing program, and you can go to town on that. I think that will be very, very helpful to you. So X Factor says I've played that. It's like a loot box, nothing or something, where he played a game where you kill the loot box and something random generates. Sometimes it's a saboteur. Oh no! And it blowed up 10 tile radius. I see. So he's talking about like loot boxes scattered across the map. You destroy them. Sometimes it results in like players maybe getting rewarded like a relic. Sometimes it's a saboteur. Sometimes it's just not really good or bad. It's just kind of a waste of time. Yeah, that could be
Yeah,
fun.
I've seen that before. I think he's thinking about what you were saying with the saboteur blowing up the blocked off area. So like if it blew up a bunch of trees, then all those trees turned in or like outposts is what loot box nothing is. But like you said, whatever it spawns could become convertible by the player that finds it.
Okay, what's our next concept here? Title locked, right? Okay, let's bring that up on the spreadsheet. Not spreadsheet, the guide that you've written. That's very nice. This is a very nice guide. Nebula, I thought you've title locked is in progress. Nebula is in progress. All right, so title locked here. Give us a rundown, BP.
So this was the very first map that I actually started, um, and like the concept has, I had just circular player planets in the corners, um, and I had even the 8 players. I had them set up exactly as the concept shows, and I had the little moon in between them, elevated, and it looked good. Uh, but more for like 1v1 and 2v2. Once you, even with the 8 player setup, how big the map is, I was like, yeah, players aren't going to like not having much land to work with. There's way too much empty water out there that won't come into play really with huge navies, because if people don't have enough land and trees to work with, they're not going to be able to have a huge navy anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of scrapped that idea, and then um, restarted recently with you on basically moving those planets to the sides, to the edges of the map, and then lengthening each end to each corner. And that gives a lot more space to all the players. And that way it could be a lot more interesting to see. The moon would stay the same. And like we had talked about yesterday, it basically becomes a version of Northern Isles with a little more symmetrical um, player lands to it. And I think it could be interesting, though we would have to see how it would play out.
X Factor has to go. All right, see you later, X Factor. So we basically got this. What is this thing? This is like a moon in the middle, and both these planets are fighting over the moon, and these planets are tidally locked toward each other. Okay. Interesting. All right, let's take a look at it in the game here. Tidal locked V2. All right, does this look right?
Yep, that's the very initial setup that I have.
Okay.
Except for the 1v1, like we talked about, that's for some reason pushing players out super far,
Yeah, that
whereas
is.
the other setups are fine.
If you wouldn't mind, I'll check this actually right now. Um, let's take a look at the Fatoria and let's see how far away the players are from the edge here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd say 5.5 Fatoria for blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and about 5.5 Fatoria for red as well. And so if we generated this under 4-player map size with 4 players, how many Fatorias does it take? A Fatoria is 5 by 5, so it's an easy way to measure here.
So they're about 27, 28 tiles from the shore with the 1v1 setup.
Yeah, and this one's only 2.5 Fatoria from the shore, so it's massive actually. That difference. I think it's because it's perhaps running into a singularity related to the eccentricity, but I still got to do a little bit more figuring out um, to fully understand why it's doing that. Because I did this really, really quick before, but this is the ideal distance right here. This is how far you want them from the shore.
Little farther. I don't remember. We can see what the 8-player, 6 and 8-player looks like, but for 2v2, they'd be pushed back a little more.
Okay. Um, look at 6.
Which would mean they would all push back a little bit, but that'd probably be fine. We don't want the TC to be ranged by a boat, really. If we can help it.
Yep. Um, so let's bring back the Fatoria here. And about 2.5 Fatoria from the edge nearest. Okay, and then the final size, 8-player. So it's just that 1v1 that's not working right for some strange reason. I think it's finding a singularity. and exploding. This might be a little bit better. Actually, this player is further than this player. Probably something about matching the eccentricities. All right. So this player is 1, 2, 3. So just a little over 3. And this player is still the 2.5. So, but anyway, this is the concept, you guys. Um, so what are our thoughts? Is there just too much water here between the players? Is this just too big an open space? I guess with this moon in the middle, it could give the players something to do, something to fight over. What are your thoughts about that? Why does the moon exist?
Strictly for the conceptual idea, and based off watching lots of tournament games on Northern Isles and maps similar to that.
Where they fight over the moon, right? Now in this case, you cannot have back fish. All your fish have to be forward.
Yep,
So that will
that
make it
is
a lot more aggressive.
that is another issue that could be seen with it, but that also differentiates it from Northern Isles as well.
All right. Is there a possibility of having something else going on in here? Maybe another set of land? What do you think about that? Like, I don't know, another moon? I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but in case you're behind and your opponent's got a ton of ships in your face, how do you come back from that?
Uh, well, if your entire team, or like in a 1v1, you just have to see if you could spread to either side or defend well. At least get to the moon and maybe hold a fort down there, take the resources so your opponent can't. But um, there's always the option with any of these maps. We can just say add asteroids. Basically, we could
Hmm.
put some more lands into the water if we want. But without there being the potential for back docks, I'd say if you don't go aggressive, and you get punished for that, then you're just out of luck. The game will be over fast, but that's the way you chose to play.
So, to be clear for the folks watching, this space is supposed to not be walkable, right? You must use a transport ship to get to the moon in the center, or to your opponent's base, right? You're not intended to be able to walk across. Is that
If
right?
you want, you could pull up the script and change that rock rock beach to water and add a land into the middle of the moon. I just haven't done that yet
Hmm.
because it's not going to be a ring. It'll be an elevated um, whole circle, basically.
But to answer the question, they are not intended to be able to walk across.
Correct.
It could be very oppressive trying to walk across and having a bunch of ships be camped here anyway. Um, Now, what do you think if what do you think about the idea of being able to walk across? Do you think it's not good for the map, bad for the map, not what you're going for?
It wasn't my initial idea, but when I've seen some other maps. I can't think of which ones in recent tournaments that they do have uh, little walkable bridges across a river into the middle island. Um, yeah, I can't think of where that one was from.
Oh, like a space elevator?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For this, we could put some shallow or amphibious there, and
Hmm.
we would basically say it's a it's a space elevator.
No, no. Why not put a bridge?
Oh, a whole bridge.
Yeah. Would a
Uh,
bridge be better? Well, first of all, would it be competitively better for this map for players to be able to walk to the moon in the center? That's the first question. And if the answer to that question is yes, then the next question is okay, how do we implement that? And I don't know if I know the answer to that first question.
yeah, I can't say for sure. I don't know if players would like that or not. And then you would have to you would have to dock either side if you want a military ships on either side.
So if you had a bridge, and let's say somebody had a military that was out of control on one side of the bridge, the military would not be out of control on the other side of the bridge. So that could actually be kind of nice. You know, that if somebody invests massively into military over here, that maybe you can still fish or make a comeback or a landing on the other side.
True.
So if there were some way of separating it off and zoning it out, that could be really beneficial. It's just food for thought. BP, you are ultimately the expert, so the decision is yours. But if you need help getting a bridge to work, then I can definitely help you out with that.
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider. I think we should probably test both ideas, maybe even a third option of it. If we could put shallow just between those spots, it would probably have to do a little land setup manipulation, but um, yeah,
Hmm.
just get a little play testing and see what people would prefer.
Right. Well, ships can sail across shallow. They
Correct.
cannot traverse a bridge. So those are kind of the two different options. Shallow would be easiest because you basically just space to other terrain types and you scale it according to the map, and you just make it so that it's, you know, there's enough shallow out here that it intersects between this moon and this mainland here. A bridge would be more complicated. You have to use a chain of actor areas, and you'd have to scale it depending on the map size, have different numbers of bridges, but it could be done as well. And it's what the Mad Catter did for Texcoco,
Yep. I did play that map before.
which I have not played, but it does look fun. So my homework on my homework list is I have to help you out with the player spawn here on this map. Um, I don't think I have Jupiter up and handy. I think the folks have seen that before. Let me see
Yeah, that was back in the fall.
how I can get Jupiter. So we did Jupiter a while ago. I helped you out with Jupiter, but it's a good one. Shop. Space maps. And it looks like I was working on something with collision too. That is weird. Okay, let me actually just cut these and I will paste them into the GitHub repository right now. I'll just do it right now. I'll literally do it right now, BP.
Oh, okay.
So you can have it, just so I don't forget to do it. And I recommend that you create a subfolder called Space Maps in here. Actually, I'll do it since I'm already here. So I'll cut, I'll paste, and cut, and then we'll create a new folder here. It's going to be Jupiter. Sorry, Space Maps. Okay, so there we go. So it looks like I worked on collision and Jupiter at some point last fall. Oh gosh, it's just taken forever to get anything done, but it's complicated. I've said this many times. Random map scripting is very easy to get the hang of and like to use the way that the devs intended you to use it to make very simple things that are quite basic. It's very hard to master and do things that the devs didn't intend for you to do. So now, actually, let me check one more thing. I think Jupiter might be, yeah, Jupiter is inactivated. Let me activate it. Jupiter.rms. Okay. And so now I should be able to find it. So I'm going to back out from this, and let's discuss if there's nothing else to discuss on Tidal Locked, we can go back to we can move on to Jupiter.
Yeah,
Show those concepts. I don't have a good feeling about collision because I didn't make a lot of good progress with that. Okay, so Jupiter is in progress. All right, give us the rundown, BP. Tell us what we're going for with Jupiter here.
Um, just trying to make it look as much like the planet as we can. It's going to be big circular island in the middle with just all water on the outside. We had discussed maybe putting some of its moons in the corners. That's definitely a possibility. We don't want to overload the system, though, per se, make the map take forever to load. But yeah, basically, would have ideally have streaks of forest across the whole surface of it. As you can see, it may be a little difficult to do without like intense manipulation. Um, I know you have the initial concept up, and it's like single strings of trees, but people or players would be circularly placed along it, and that wouldn't change too much because we also want to have the red storm, the icon, or
Mm-hmm.
what would the word be? Just like what people think of when they think of Jupiter, basically. We want to have that on there, and that'll be kind of like a golden pit. I'll have an extensive amount of golden stone for it. Um, Maybe a few extra relics on there that are otherwise
Yep.
dotted just around the planet.
But it's unique because it's not in the center. It's one of the flanks is fighting over it, and you don't know which flank that is.
So
So,
that would make make for an interesting uh, point of discussion and observation when watching the fight. Players in the north may go for an entirely different strategy than the south, and if it's team games, then you don't know what the flank and pockets are going to plan to do.
yeah, I mean, maybe both pockets actually go and fight over the storm, leaving the flanks to sort of fend for themselves. I'm not really sure exactly what it would be. It could be pretty cool. Okay, so let's see what we have in game for that. And I think this Jupiter will be a good reference too as you learn how to use the function library. So do a lot of fun stuff in that. So let's come over here, select random map size large, and see if we can find Jupiter. Here we go. There it is, Jupiter. 8-player map size, and let's hit generate. Let's go. It's thinking about it. How big is Jupiter?
You
Didn't
did
check.
you did it pretty big, and I think you had randomized the red storm might have been one of the issues. So yeah, there you
Here
go.
we
And you
go.
got the diagonal
Yeah,
strips of land as well.
that's a little over 2 megabytes. There was a time when a little over 2 megabytes was like nothing. Um, oh, it looks like there's this stuff out here too. These kind of appear to be random lands, maybe a bunch of small moons. I'm not sure. It might be better to have just moons in the corner though.
I
I
think you
don't.
were trying to mess with those maybe with borders or something. I don't recall.
Yes. So here's the location of the storm is on dirt terrain, and these players, you can see the stripes. Stripes are at an angle, and you hit generate, and the players could spawn in a different location. But the important thing is that they're symmetric around the storm. And I believe the player starting locations actually are random. Yeah, see, like these players are very close to the storm now. So the player starting locations definitely are random. Storm is in the south. I don't know if the storm has the potential to spawn in the north as well.
I think it does, and that's one thing that we can cut out that may reduce the file size because I would prefer it to just stay in the south and always look as Jupiter does instead of being upside down.
Oh, I understand. I think I baked it to have the capability of spawning in the north so that players wouldn't already know where the golden pit was.
Yeah,
Um,
I
when they
mean,
started, they'd have to scout to
yeah,
figure it out.
randomly, competitively, it would make sense, but these maps aren't meant to make complete sense, just look good.
So Anyway, this is the idea, and I've shared this with you now, so you can do what you wish with it. Is this elevated above the water? Okay, no, actually, it does not appear to be elevated above the water. That could be something smart that we do. Be elevated above the water to nerf the value of water again. But anyway, so these stripes have the potential to be moving up like this. They could be a mirror version of themselves moving down, or they could go across horizontally the way that you guys have seen that.
Yeah,
So,
terrain-wise, it looks great so far. I suppose, did you do that with borders, I guess? Bunch of
do
leaf terrain and sand borders?
nope, it's not done with borders. It's done with little lands, lots of them.
That would make sense.
Lots of little lands. So now we generate it for a tiny map size, 2 players, and we should confirm that those players are equidistant from the storm. They don't know where the storm is, if it's up here, if it's down here. So it's good stuff. I think it'd be fun to try to prevent this from happening, though. Yeah, these are just a really crude idea. We'll probably do like bigger moons in the corners, I think, but I don't know for sure exactly.
Yeah, we'll see. And we'll base them off Jupiter's real moons. And that would be another map similar to Beach Fight, I'd say. Except you have to get ships out if you want to get to the corners of the map.
All right, so you guys got any questions for BP about the space maps? BP, I don't think we have any more to talk about. I don't know if Nebula is in the GitHub repository, so I don't know that I can bring it up. Let's check.
Well, I think you may have taken it. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's in the GitHub.
It's
I probably
basically
sent you the file a while back.
it's basically Water Nomad with all of the benefits and detractors of that map, but it's space themed, so it's pretty cool. I think we were going to try to find a way of adding some more comets. I think you had some depleted neutron stars or something in them that had lots of gold on them.
So they were
So we did test it.
They were randomly or somewhat randomly placed islands of elevated rock, basically, that had golden stone on them. And then we had talked about doing same thing as we're going to probably do with the Comet Trail. Elevate a bunch of little lands that will make it more difficult for ships to navigate across. It'll still be mostly mangrove shallow, so players can build and walk anywhere. But if we do a bunch of tiny elevations of land around, then it would be much more difficult for ships to chase after players.
Okay. So you guys got any thoughts, any questions, comments? Let BP know. It's very open. He's looking to generate some interest in the space maps. So if you want to help out, or you want to play test, or you want to tell BP how much you love the maps, let him know. He's in the server. He's active, an active part of the community. Any final comments or words on the space maps, BP, before we move on to text lesson of the day?
No, I don't think so. Just need to get them made and get them played. See how they go.
I like it. It's catchy. Get them made and get them played. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, BP, for joining us today. We wish you the best of luck, and you know that right after ScriptChat, I'm going to be back to trying to figure out what's going on with the player spawns and see if I can make them a little bit more fair for Collision for the 1v1.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
Yep. We'll see ya.
All right. See ya.
All right. So that was BPDrej, everybody. working on the space maps. Really appreciate him joining us. It was a good presentation. So hopefully you are as interested in that as I am. So what's text lesson of the day? Well, first of all, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll step away real quick, refill my water. And if you've got questions, we'll go through your questions. And if not, I'll just go through text lesson. And when I'm done with the lesson, if there are no questions or there were no questions, I'll end ScriptChat there. And if there were questions, then we'll continue with the questions. So basically, what I'm saying is, let me know if you got any questions. If you do, then we'll try to answer them when I get back. And if you don't, I'll just go on to the lesson and we'll end ScriptChat. Either way, you'll still get the lesson. It's just if you got questions, I'll try to answer your questions first, because I actually may change the lesson depending on what your questions are. So I'll be right back. Just give me a couple minutes here. We will go on mute and but we'll still have the face cam. So I'll be right back. Let me know. Thanks for being here. Let's go on mute. And all right, I'll be right back. Ask away if you got any questions. Thanks, guys. All right, I'm back. Thanks for sticking with me. Looks like we don't have any questions, so we'll go right into text lesson. It's a pretty basic thing. Let's come over here. We'll shift over to ScriptChat demonstrations. Okay. Close all that down. Nice. I'm live on my own channel. Good to know. So we're going to do a quick demonstration on borders. That's what the lesson is going to be. Border demonstration. That's what we're going to call it. So we are going to go back to the main menu. I'm going to come back here. Okay. Can't have a random app script without borders. Well, I guess you could, but borders are a very useful tool for random app scripting. So we're going to talk about them. We're going to rename this border demonstration to 12.22. All right, we got the proper behavior version. Can get rid of that. Comment that out. Don't need this. Don't need that. Okay. So we're going to start with essentially with this. Comment out a lot of this stuff, actually, though. We'll comment out this, 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 and this. Okay, so what are borders? Well, fundamentally, we'll change this to grass. Borders, the map is divided up into different quadrants here. And I will demonstrate real quick. We'll pull up paint and we'll just sketch it. And this is how the coordinate system for random map scripting works. So you have this stylus here. Okay. So imagine that you've got your basic box for the map, right? So this dimension here, right here, this is the x-axis. Oh man, this is terrible. I need to increase the size of my pen, I think. There we go. Let's see if that helps out. It does. So this is the x-axis here, and this is the y-axis. So this point here in the left is 0, 0, and this point in the right is 100, 100. Okay, so that makes this point 100, 0, and that makes this point 0, 100. But most importantly, though, are the concept of borders. So as far as the game is concerned, this right here, this is the left border. This right here, this is the right border. This here is the top border. And this right here is the bottom border. So when you specify a border in the scripting engine, what you're doing is you are telling the scripting engine to place that land randomly such that it avoids that border by a certain percentage of the map length. So for instance, if you said when you were creating a map, right 75, then what that would mean is that the land that's created would avoid the right border by 75% of the map length, and your land would end up somewhere in here. Okay? Depending on how much area you give this land, it could occupy all of this space, but it does not have to. So if it's small enough, it might actually just occupy, let's say, this or this or this or something like that. Okay? Now, if you wanted this land to occupy some space right here, then you could specify, okay, avoid the right border by whatever this distance is, avoid the left border by whatever this distance is, avoid the bottom border by whatever distance this is, and avoid the top border by whatever distance this is. So, in effect, you can use borders as a replacement in some situations for directly specifying the land position. Now, land position is nice because sometimes the scripting engine is stupid and it chooses a place for the border that is not good, or it's not what you want, or it's just outright not going to work. So that is something to consider. But the advantage to border is that it's random. You can't predict where that land is going to be, and that can be a good thing. Unpredictability is what makes Age of Empires 2 so successful. Okay, so we've kind of sketched that with our stylus. Now let me put this back. There we go. So back to our actual scripting engine here. We are creating a land kind of in the center of the map, and it is avoiding all of these borders by 43% of the map edge length. So when we hit generate on this border demonstration, we will be creating grass that's kind of in the middle of this base dirt terrain here. So we come out here and we select border demonstration. Doesn't matter the map size. We hit generate, and you should be able to see that we've got this circle of grass in the middle of all of this dirt out here. Now, if we wanted it to be a column of grass, we would remove one of these borders, right? So if we got rid of the right border, it would no longer have right border avoidance. And save it. It would no longer have right border avoidance, so this would extend up this way. So we hit generate again, and that is indeed what we see. Now, because borders are funky, we kind of have these weird tapers near the boundaries of those borders. If we wanted this to occupy this quarter of the map, then we could get rid of the top border avoidance as well. So we'll come up here and get rid of the top border avoidance and save that. Come on, I don't want this. Can we not? All right, whatever. I seriously think they do that on purpose sometimes. They detect that OBS is streaming, and it's like, oh yeah, let's promote this to a bunch of people. I don't know, maybe that sounds a little tinfoil hatty of me. Okay, so there we go. Again, kind of weird behavior along the boundary of that border, just sort of inherent how it applies a little fillet like that. Okay, so finally, if we got rid of left border, then, and we just put 43 here, then in that case we would just be sectioning off this entire portion of the map. So I'm pretty sure that we save this, Yeah, but let's check. So these borders are useful because they're lands. So if you wanted to create a part of the map that has lots of elevation, you could put this border down first and then elevate the specific terrain type and then convert it back to dirt in the terrain generation section. So let's say that you wanted to occupy everything but this quarter of the map. Well, you could just specify create the borders and but create dirt terrain instead. So you don't have to do two lands to do that, but you could, I suppose. But let's say that you wanted to create kind of like a checkers sort of thing. So let's say that you wanted this to be dirt down here and you wanted these two corners to be grass and this to be dirt up here. How would you do that? Well, we would add back in this thing. We got 100%. So that we are kind of specifying only a quarter of it. Let's trim this back down to 50% using traditional border techniques. And we would create another land that has the opposite. Ah, no. What is it doing? So it's supposed to be avoiding the bottom border. Oh, because we're specifying a land position here. We don't have to do that. So it's getting confused. You can do that. It does help out in some situations. All right, so there we go. It still has this weird hard-coded feature that tapers the border sometimes, and there may be ways of mitigating that, but I don't know that I'll get into them right now. And then we will copy this, and we'll paste this down here, and now we'll do top border and left border. And it should make another one over here. Okay, and now we could do other things, like we could give these lands different zones and allow them to grow and touch each other. So let's do like avoidances of 40. Let's see what we have here. So you can adjust them however you want. They don't have to be symmetrical. See if we can get those two to touch each other. All right, so there you go. And these zones are kind of out here. Let's go back to this situation, though, where we have a single land with all the borders specified. You can use that to make an island in the middle of the map. Just like this. Now, let's suppose that we wanted to make this border really, really rough. Like we wanted this to be super choppy. I don't know if I have this. It doesn't look like I have it actually. But I had a lot of Zetnesses. Oh, I do. All right, I want to show you guys something. Check out Antarctica by Zetness here. So let's come over here and look at tiny map size. Since we're configured for 2 players, you guys see how like choppy this sea ice is, and of course he's got all kinds of penguins around. And he's got the wood piles that you can chop and the fruit storage or the food storage here. Essentially no wood lines though. The map is highly aggressive, and rightfully so. A little bit of gravelly rock, a little bit of ice, but it's mostly snow. Penguins standing around eating fish. There's a shipwreck here. Oh, who would want to go to Antarctica? Too much cold. There was an Arctic expedition though. But the point is that this is really, really rugged and choppy, right? how did Zetnus achieve this? Well, let's see if we can do something kind of similar to that. So let us set this land, terrain type is equal to ice, and we're going to use base terrain water. So let's increase the size of our island here. Maybe border fuzziness of, or sorry, border of 20. And so now let's generate our border demonstration. I'm not sure how I have all of Zetnus's maps, but I'm glad that I do, because I am not subscribed to his mod, I think, because my mod's reset, and I haven't yet resubscribed to it. Don't worry about these weird visual bugs in the corners. Okay, so let's generate. And you basically see we've got a big island of ice in the center here. Now, we can apply a term called border fuzziness. And we can actually kind of give it a fudge factor to how much it respects the borders that we gave it. So in Zetnus's guide here, oops, let's look up border fuzziness. Okay, so here's the term, and it's like an adherence to the borders. Okay, and it specifies the extent to which land growth respects borders and actually stops at a border. Low values allow the lands to exceed specified borders, actually giving ragged-looking edges. 0 means that it will ignore borders entirely, and 100 means that borders are fully respected. So if you don't put anything in there, the default is 20. So right now we've got 20. That's what we need to know. So what happens if we say border fuzziness of 100? Then if we choose the same seed and we hit generate, these borders should look absolutely pristine. And indeed they do. Look at how crisp that is. It doesn't get much straighter than that. So if we go down and we change this now, and let's say that we make it 50, it's not going to look as straight as this, but it'll still look straighter than 20. So we hit generate again. And you can see that, all right, got a little bit of choppiness here, a bit of protrusions. Okay, let's go down to 20, which is where we had it. Hit generate. Okay, I think that did it. Yeah, and notice how we have a much more irregular sawtooth shape now for this ice floating on the sea. But now let's start making it smaller than 20 and see what happens here. So let's try making it 10. All right, notice how that's even choppier now. And in some cases, you even have little puddles here, pools. Perfect for penguins to dive in and out of. It's like an indoor swimming pool for them. Okay, let's go to 5. So we'll cut it in half again. And remember, we're all doing this on the same seed. And you can see that we start getting really, really, really choppy borders here. And we could even go down to 1, which is our minimum that is still respected, where they actually still care about the borders. And you can see that we've got the sea ice breaking up and such and going out. So for Antarctica, to generate these features of the sea ice kind of breaking off to simulate that, Zetnus is actually constraining Antarctica, the island, using borders just like this. And he's giving it a very low border fuzziness value so that it breaks off into small pieces. I bet you didn't know that, huh? Pretty cool. So border fuzziness of 0 should cause it to completely ignore the borders, and this will take up the entire map. So you got to have some level of border fuzziness in there, but there's a big difference between 1 and 0, as you can see, and it's basically just all ice at this point. So just a field of ice, just one big iced over lake. Now, border fuzziness doesn't just apply to lands, and you can apply this property to as many neutral lands as you want. You can also use it on create player lands. So let's comment this out, and let's uncomment create player lands here. We'll uncomment both of these, I think. And we'll comment this one out. We'll give them a circle radius. It's fine. Base size of 8, that's fine. Land percent, we'll give them 10%. And terrain type is grass. So we'll change it to ice. All right, and let's hit generate here, and let's see where we stand. So you can see that we've got 2 of these icy islands here. Now, it's not really fair, right? We don't want a situation where a player has a little cove back here, and he's maybe able to tower it, or he's able to protect it better than if somebody could just go straight around, right? So what we can do is we can actually specify borders for these player lands so that this arm cannot curve out here like that. So we'll copy these border arguments here, and we will paste them down here. And we will tell these player lands to avoid these borders all by that amount. Now, it's important to remember that these borders apply to land growth, not where the lands are actually placed. So as you can see here, these player lands are these squares, the center of these squares here. And what's happening is this land is all growing outward or inward toward the center of the map because the base of this player land is actually outside of the allowed zone for this growth to occur. So because the borders are preventing this growth from growing this way, it will grow this way, but it's not preventing the land from spawning because we're directly specifying the radius at which the player land can spawn. If we didn't have the circle radius here, then that would be kind of controlling the radius, if you will. So let us relax these border requirements and maybe say within 10%. So we'll still keep the circle radius, but we'll relax that. And as you can see now, we've got these player lands here, and they kind of grow equally in all directions, but they are never going to intersect with the edge of the map. So we can do some more random generations, and it just will not happen. It cannot happen. The borders prevent that from happening. Now, what would happen if we were to get rid of the circle radius? Just get rid of it. Just remove it. We hit go. Then we're still not allowed to grow out that far. I don't know that the player starting locations are quite as fair, although I think it does still try to give a somewhat circular shape or distribution to the players, as you can see. Now, if we were to increase these border values, the players will be forced away from the borders to a larger extent. So save that. Hit generate. And as you can see, it's forcing these players apart from each other, or toward each other, because they're forced to be so far away from the borders. Now, if we gave these players a zone, or other zone avoidance distance, then the player lands would not merge, or they'd try not to merge. Let's give them other zone avoidance distance of like 4, and we'll get a channel between these two ice flows, like that. Now, we can actually also apply border fuzziness, though, to these players. So we could do like border fuzziness of 10 instead of 20, and it will make the borders of these players a little bit choppier. So they'll be a tad bit choppier. They won't respect the borders quite as much. We might need to increase the land growth here so that we can see that more clearly. So I'm going to decrease the size of these borders so the players are a little bit further apart. And we'll give it land percent 20 instead. Okay, and I think you can start to see the choppiness here. Let's give them land percent 100, actually. Why not? Why not? Make it easier for me to prove my point. Okay, so there it is. We gave border fuzziness of 1. We should get the choppiest thing of all. But they're still respecting each other. So there you go. You can have all kinds of fun with this. You can add in different lands with different borders and different zones and zone avoidances. And those zone avoidances we discussed last time. But that's the basic idea behind borders. So you can use them on traditional neutral lands. You can use them on player lands. And they're just a great way of telling land where it can grow to. Again, it does not apply to where the base of the land is. What happens in that case is the scripting engine will choose a location for that base within the range of the borders, and it'll put it down there, and then the land will grow out from it. So if you guys are experimenting with borders in any random map script that you're making and you have any questions, just let me know, and we'll try to help you with that. Otherwise, I think we're going to call this this lesson a wrap. Just a quick overview of borders. Doesn't have to take too long, but hopefully you guys learned something today. Hopefully you guys found BP's presentation to be compelling. I know I did. I thought it was pretty cool. And we'll see you guys next time. So thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you soon.